Hello, Dr. Dantec. Thank you for joining me today on
Sabbatical, Spotlight Series, Sabbatical, Spotlight Series, Sabbatical, Spotlight Series, Sabbatical, Spotlight Series.
Sabbatical Spotlight Series.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Professor Dantec is an assistant professor in the psychology department. He spent his fall sabbatical researching the impact of electrical stimulation within different areas of the scalp on time perception. Tell me a little bit about your sabbatical.
So I did a lot of projects at the same time, but this one was the most focus, the biggest focus of it. And very simply, I can say this is an exploratory study where I try to see how the stimulation of the different areas of the scalp. So pretty much we put some electrode on the scalp and we try to see how this could affect time perception overall. After 20 minutes, we would remove the electrodes and we put them in the booth. So I have a soundproof booth where they have to run the experiment, the actual experiment, which is a time perception, a discrimination task. So they have to see stimuli on the screen, one, two, the duration of the stimuli, the durations were different, and they had to discriminate them and tell me which one they thought was the longest one. So if it was the first one, they had to press one button. If it was the second one, they had to press the other button. At the end of the experiment, we collected the data. So all the data were recorded. We recorded their accuracy, whether they're able to actually determine if the first stimulus or the second one was the longest one. And we also recorded their reaction time, just to see if in some conditions it would take more time for them to actually determine which one was the longest one and to give their response. This was an exploratory study, so I tried to stimulate frontal, temporal, parietal, and occipital area. So depending on the groups the subjects were in, they had electrodes here, 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 or here. And we also had a control group where the subjects had to take the experiment without getting any stimulus. Overall, for most of the conditions, the performance were higher when people received stimuli, the electrical stimulation. But there is one condition where this was not the case, and this is something actually this is something I didn't expect, to be honest, because there are different areas on the scalp where we know the cortex is particularly important for time perception and specific aspects of time perception. For some areas, particularly when it comes to the parietal lobe, it is pretty clear that the parietal lobe, or certain areas in the parietal lobe, actually take part to attention processes. So that means in time perception, particularly if you need to mobilize your attention on the stimulus presented on the screen, for example, you will need to pay attention, and the parietal lobe is going to be very active. Now, when it comes to the frontal area, this is known to be very important also for attention processes, but particularly for decision making. When you have two stimuli and you have to make a decision, which one is the longest one, we know that the frontal lobe is very important there. So my expectations was to see an improvement for the frontal lobe stimuli, and for when people would be stimulated in the frontal lobe and in the frontal area, sorry, and in the parietal area as well. So that was the case for the frontal area. We had an improvement of the performance, but surprisingly, when it comes to the parietal area, what happened is that in the most difficult condition, where subjects had to deal with short conditions in a specific order, the performance was way lower than the rest of the subjects. So that means the students who received the stimulus in the frontal, temporal, occipital, or nothing, they were better, but they had a much better performance as compared to the subjects who received the stimuli in the parietal lobe.
Why did this particular topic interest you?
So there are two reasons. The first one is practical. I actually bought a device which is called TDCS, which stands for transcranial discontinuous current stimulation. So this is a big name just for something actually very simple. If you imagine you take a battery and you put two electrodes and you stick it on your scalp, that's what it is. And it's something that delivers a current which is 0.2 milliampere. and 12 volts. So really not something crazy. You don't even fit it, to be fair, but this is something that is actually very interesting because it is developing a lot. I mean, it's been developing recently a lot. And the second reason is that there is not much to be done in time perception using this technique. There's a couple of papers I was able to find, but nothing extensive. And so that's why I wanted to be a little bit more exploratory and evaluate the impact of this stimulus on the different areas of the scalp.
What challenges did you face during your sabbatical?
The big challenge with sabbatical is always the time. You know, you think you have a lot of time when you're about to start, and then you realize, oh, this is it. I already have to prepare my next classes for next quarter. But so except the time, it's the organization of the schedule. Try to make sure you do your best every day to use the time you have and to use also the collaboration you have from the students that you're working with. Like I had during that sabbatical, I had 10 students working with me as research assistant. They were not working all at the same time, but they collaborated with me overall during that quarter. So that was a lot of organization, let's be honest. And students, you know, who are research assistants, they have their own schedule, they have their own things to do. So you have to be flexible as much as possible and sometimes be ready to take over if something happens and they cannot make it for some reason.
What is the current status of your research?
We collected the data. We were able to get something like 40 subjects and 40 participants for this study, and we analyzed the data already. And as well, we submitted a poster for the conference WPA, Western Psychological Association. So this is something that was supposed to be presented by the end of April, May. So typically, as you can imagine, this is a conference that was postponed or cancelled. So postponed is the best term because we're supposed to go in October, but to be honest, I don't even know if this is going to happen. So we have to be careful with that. But the good news is that this is something we were supposed to present. So that means the poster was accepted, and I'm supposed to go there with several students who are on the poster as well. So I associated them all because they really did a great job. They did the best they could to run as many subjects as we could during the time we had. And like I said, I was busy on other projects, so having them on my side really helped pushing this project all together.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Dantec. We will see you all next time on Sabbatical Spotlight Series.